I am Harper Williams, 22 years old, and about to graduate from Harvard Business School. Last week, I called my parents to finalize graduation plans. Dad answered with his usual brusque tone. "We cannot drive you to the ceremony. Take the bus. We are buying your sister a Bentley," he said without hesitation. Cassandra was only graduating high school. The familiar sting of unfairness burned in my chest. I had felt it for years. Hit that like button and subscribe to follow my journey from bus rider to someone who made my parents drop their programs in shock. Growing up in our sprawling Connecticut home, I always felt like I was living in the shadow of my sister. My father, Robert Williams, worked as a chief financial officer for a Fortune 500 company. He was stern, methodical, and had impossibly high standards. My mother, Elizabeth, was a renowned neurologist at a prestigious hospital in Boston. She was equally demanding, but in a more subtle way. Together, they created an environment where excellence was not celebrated, but expected. When I was 4 years old, my sister Cassandra was born. I still remember the day my parents brought her home. She had these big blue eyes and tufts of golden hair that caught the sunlight. From that moment, it seemed like the spotlight in our family permanently shifted. I went from being the center of attention to the reliable older child who was expected to set an example. The pattern of favoritism started subtly. For my 8th birthday, I received a set of educational books. 2 months later, Cassandra turned 4 and was gifted a lavish princess party complete with a pony in our backyard. I told myself it was because she was younger and needed more attention. But as the years passed, the disparity only grew more obvious. Our family vacations became centered around Cassandra's interests. If she wanted to go to Disney World, we went to Disney World. When I expressed interest in attending a science camp instead of our annual beach trip when I was 12, my mother patted my head and said, "Maybe next year, Harper." Next year never came. School achievements were another area where the double standard was painfully clear. I worked tirelessly to maintain straight A's, joining every academic club and competition I could. My report cards were met with cursory nods and comments like, "That is what we expect from you, Harper." Meanwhile, Cassandra would bring home B's and C's and receive effusive praise for trying her best or showing improvement. By the time I reached high school, I had internalized that I needed to work twice as hard for half the recognition. I joined the debate team, became editor of the school newspaper, and took every advanced placement class available. I studied until midnight, most nights, fueled by the desperate hope that eventually my parents would look at me with the same pride they showed Cassandra when she got a minor role in the school play. My sister and I had a complicated relationship. I never blamed her directly for our parents' favoritism. How could I? She was just as much a product of their parenting as I was, but there was an undeniable distance between us. Cassandra grew accustomed to getting whatever she wanted. She never had to work for anything or face consequences for her actions. When she crashed her first car at 16, a brand new Audi, my father simply bought her another one the next day. When I asked for help buying a used Honda for college, he told me to save up from my part-time job. The most painful memory came during my senior year of high school. I had been named valedictorian, an achievement that represented years of relentless work and sacrifice. The ceremony was scheduled for a Tuesday evening in May. When I reminded my parents about the date, my mother winced. "Oh, Harper, that is the same night as Cassandra's piano recital. She has been practicing for months. You understand, right?" I nodded automatically, the disappointment calcifying into something harder and colder in my chest. I attended my valedictory ceremony alone. As I stood at the podium delivering my speech about perseverance and looking toward the future, I scanned the audience for faces that were not there. That night, I made a decision. I had received a partial scholarship to Harvard, enough to make it possible, but not enough to cover everything. My parents had vaguely mentioned helping with expenses, but I decided I would not ask them for a dime. The summer before college, I worked 3 jobs. I was a barista in the morning, an office assistant in the afternoon, and I tutored in the evenings. I saved every penny. When August came, I packed my belongings into 2 suitcases. My parents seemed surprised when I declined their offer to drive me to Cambridge. "I've got it covered," I told them, wheeling my suitcases to the door. My mother looked momentarily concerned. "Do you have enough money for the semester, Harper?" I nodded. "I've been saving." My father glanced up from his newspaper. "College is expensive. Don't waste your money on frivolous things." That was the extent of their send-off. Meanwhile, Cassandra was starting her freshman year of high school with a complete wardrobe overhaul and a new MacBook Pro. The contrast could not have been more stark, but by then I had stopped expecting anything different. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. I was finally going to build a life that was entirely my own. My first semester at Harvard was a brutal awakening. While many of my classmates were focusing solely on their studies, I was juggling a full course load with 3 part-time jobs. I worked at the university library in the mornings, delivered food for a local restaurant between classes, and spent my weekends as a retail associate at a clothing store in Cambridge. Sleep became a luxury I could rarely afford. Despite coming from a wealthy family, I received zero financial support. My partial scholarship covered tuition, but everything else, from housing to books to meals, came out of my own pocket. I lived in the smallest dorm room on campus, ate ramen noodles more often than I care to admit, and became an expert at finding free events that offered complimentary food. During those early struggles, I met Jessica Rodriguez, a fellow business student who became my closest friend. Jessica came from a single-parent household in Arizona and was also working multiple jobs to make ends meet. We bonded over our shared financial struggles and became each other's support system. We would take turns cooking affordable meals in the communal kitchen and split the cost of textbooks whenever possible. "How can your parents not help you at all?" Jessica asked one night as we were highlighting used textbooks we had purchased together, especially since they can clearly afford it. I shrugged, attempting to appear unbothered. "They believe in self-sufficiency, I guess." "That is not self-sufficiency," Jessica replied, her voice tinged with indignation. "That is neglect, when they are buying your sister designer clothes and new cars." It was the first time someone had named the disparity so bluntly, and something about hearing it from another person made the reality of my situation hit harder. In my sophomore year, I met Jake Thornton in my economics class. He was charming, intelligent, and came from a wealthy family in New York. We started dating, and for a while, it felt like I had found someone who truly saw me. Jake was generous and kind, always trying to treat me to nice dinners or weekend getaways. But my pride made it difficult to accept his generosity. I was determined to pay my own way, even when it meant working extra shifts to afford my half of our dates. The relationship began to strain when Jake could not understand why I would not let him help me financially or why I was always so busy with work. "Just let me take care of it," he would say, frustrated when I insisted on paying for myself. "Or ask your parents for help. Why are you making things so hard on yourself?" No matter how many times I tried to explain my relationship with my parents, he never truly understood. Our relationship ended after 8 months when he surprised me with plane tickets to Paris for spring break. When I told him I could not go because I had already committed to working extra shifts, he accused me of being stubborn and ungrateful. We broke up that night, adding heartbreak to my growing list of challenges. The holidays were particularly difficult. While other students went home to celebrate with their families, I often stayed on campus to pick up extra work hours. During my first Thanksgiving at Harvard, I called home hoping for at least a warm conversation. "We miss you, Harper," my mother said, though I could hear the distraction in her voice. "We are about to sit down for dinner." Cassandra made the most beautiful centerpiece for the table. In the background, I could hear laughter and the clinking of glasses. "I should let you go," I said quietly. "Yes, good idea. Call again soon," she replied before hanging up. I spent that Thanksgiving evening working a double shift at a local restaurant, serving turkey dinners to other people's families. The turning point in my college experience came when I enrolled in Professor Wilson's financial technology course during my junior year. Unlike many professors who barely noticed the quiet, hard-working student in the back row, Professor Wilson saw something in me. After I turned in a paper analyzing emerging trends in digital payment systems, she asked me to stay after class. "This is graduate-level work, Harper," she said, gesturing to my paper. "Have you considered focusing on financial technology for your career?" That conversation marked the beginning of a mentorship that would change the trajectory of my life. Professor Wilson became the supportive adult figure I had always craved. She recommended books, introduced me to industry contacts, and, most importantly, believed in my potential. Under her guidance, I began to explore the world of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. This was in 2019, when Bitcoin was recovering from a crash, but still not mainstream. I became fascinated by the potential of digital currencies and the underlying technology. I spent countless hours in the library researching, learning to code, and developing my own theories about how to solve some of the security issues plaguing early cryptocurrency platforms. By the end of my junior year, what had started as academic interest had evolved into a concrete business idea. I envisioned a platform that would make cryptocurrency transactions more secure and accessible to everyday users. Professor Wilson encouraged me to pursue it. "You have identified a genuine gap in the market," she told me. "This could be significant if you can execute it properly." For the first time since arriving at Harvard, I felt a sense of purpose that went beyond just surviving. I had found something I was passionate about, something that could potentially change the financial landscape. And unlike my relationship with my parents, my success in this venture would be entirely within my control. The summer before my senior year, I dedicated myself entirely to developing my business idea. While my classmates were securing prestigious internships or traveling, I was holed up in a tiny apartment I shared with Jessica, writing code and drafting business plans. My concept was evolving into what would eventually become Secure Pay, a platform designed to make cryptocurrency transactions as easy and secure as traditional banking. The Harvard Business School hosted an annual startup competition that awarded seed funding to the most promising student ventures. With Professor Wilson's encouragement, I decided to enter. I spent weeks refining my pitch, creating prototypes, and preparing for every possible question the judges might ask. The night before the competition, I rehearsed my presentation for Jessica for the 20th time. "Harper, you need to sleep," she insisted after my third consecutive run-through. "You know this inside and out. You are ready." The competition was fierce, with over 100 student ventures competing. When they announced Secure Pay as the winner, I almost could not believe it. The prize was $50,000 in seed funding and office space in the University Innovation Center. It was more support than I had ever received for anything in my life, and it came not from my family, but from people who recognized the value of my ideas. The win attracted attention from several angel investors, including Michael Chen, a successful tech entrepreneur who had made his fortune in the early days of social media. He invited me to lunch to discuss my company. "I'll cut to the chase," he said after I had explained my vision. "I am prepared to offer you $2 million for the entire concept right now. You can finish your degree without any financial worries, and I will take it from here." It was a tempting offer. $2 million would have solved all my financial problems instantly. I could have paid off my student loans, secured comfortable housing, and never had to worry about working multiple jobs again. But something held me back. "Thank you, but I am not looking to sell," I heard myself say. "I believe in what I am building, and I want to see it through." Michael looked surprised but not displeased. "Most students would jump at that offer." "I am not most students," I replied. The next day, Michael called again with a different proposal. He wanted to invest $500,000 for a 15% stake in SecurePay. This time, I accepted. With his investment, I could officially incorporate the company, hire a small team, and accelerate development. The following months were the most challenging and exhilarating of my life. I was still a full-time student, but now I was also a CEO. I hired 2 brilliant computer science students as part-time developers and a graduate student with marketing experience to help build our brand. We worked out of a cramped room in the Innovation Center, often coding until the early hours of the morning. There were moments when it all seemed impossible. 3 months after we started, we discovered a critical flaw in our security protocol that required rewriting almost half of our code. I did not sleep for 4 days straight as we worked to fix it. Then, one of our developers quit unexpectedly, leaving us short-handed just before an important deadline. Our bank account was dwindling fast, and we were still months away from having a marketable product. During one particularly low point, I called Professor Wilson in tears. "I think I have made a huge mistake," I confessed. "We are going to run out of money before we even launch." "Every successful entrepreneur has moments like this," she assured me. "The difference is whether you push through or give up. Which one are you going to do?" Her words steeled my resolve. I doubled down on our efforts, took on even more of the coding myself, and reached out to my network for additional resources. Jessica, despite having no technical background, offered to help with administrative tasks for free on evenings and weekends. We survived that crisis by sheer determination. The breakthrough came in March of my senior year. We finally perfected our proprietary security algorithm, which allowed cryptocurrency transactions to process 30% faster than any existing platform while maintaining bank-level security. When we demonstrated the technology to Michael, he immediately recognized its potential. "This changes everything," he said, watching our demonstration. "How quickly can you prepare for a Series A funding round?" With Michael's connections, we secured meetings with some of the top venture capital firms in Boston and New York. Our timing coincided with a renewed interest in cryptocurrency following Bitcoin's remarkable recovery. After a whirlwind month of pitches and negotiations, we closed a funding round of $50 million at a company valuation of $700 million. The investment news made ripples in the tech and finance communities, but I decided to keep a low profile. I did not give interviews or make public statements. More importantly, I did not tell my family about any of it. Part of me wanted to prove I could succeed completely on my own before revealing anything. Another part, if I am being honest, wanted to see their faces when they finally discovered what I had built while they were busy doting on Cassandra. By the time graduation approached, SecurePay had grown to a team of 30 employees. We had launched our beta platform to select users and were receiving overwhelmingly positive feedback. Our valuation had climbed to just over $1 billion, officially making my company a unicorn in startup terminology and me a paper billionaire at 22 years old. Despite these extraordinary developments, I maintained my routine at Harvard, completing all my coursework and preparing for graduation. Only a handful of people knew about my company's success, and I preferred it that way. Professor Wilson, who had watched my journey from the beginning, could barely contain her pride. "You know, Forbes is doing their 30 under 30 list soon," she mentioned during our last advising session. "I may have nominated you." I laughed it off, but secretly I was starting to allow myself to feel proud of what I had accomplished. Against all odds, without family support or connections, I had built something valuable. The validation I had sought from my parents for so long had finally come, but from a completely different source. I had found it within myself. As May approached, and with it my graduation ceremony, I experienced a complicated mix of emotions. On one hand, I felt immense pride in completing my degree while simultaneously building a billion-dollar company. On the other hand, I could not shake the lingering desire for my family to witness this milestone. Despite years of emotional neglect, some childish part of me still wanted them to see me walk across that stage. 3 weeks before graduation, I mailed formal invitations to my parents and Cassandra. I included tickets for the ceremony and a handwritten note expressing how much it would mean to have them there. Then I waited, checking my phone more frequently than I cared to admit, hoping for an enthusiastic response. The call finally came on a Tuesday evening as I was leaving the Secure Pay office. Seeing my father's name on the screen sent a familiar flutter of anxiety through my chest. "Hello, Dad," I answered, trying to keep my voice casual. "Harper," he acknowledged in his typical businesslike tone. "We received your graduation invitation." "Yes," I said, waiting for the congratulations or excitement that never came. "I hope you can make it." There was a pause, and I heard my mother's voice in the background asking who was calling. "It's Harper," my father replied to her before returning to our conversation about the graduation. "We have a conflict that weekend." My heart sank. "What kind of conflict?" "Cassandra has her high school graduation the same week, and we have several celebration activities planned. The timing is just not going to work for us to drive up to Cambridge." I swallowed hard. Her high school graduation is on Thursday. Mine is on Saturday. You could attend both. "Well, we are also taking her on a shopping trip to New York that weekend as part of her graduation gift. The plans have been set for months." I gripped my phone tighter. "I sent the invitations as soon as they were available. This is my Harvard graduation, Dad. It's kind of a big deal." "Of course it is," he said, his tone softening marginally. "And we are very proud of you. You have always been self-sufficient. I'm sure you will be fine handling this on your own, too." That was when he delivered the line that would stick with me forever. "You will have to take the bus to your ceremony. We are buying your sister a Bentley for her graduation present." I nearly dropped my phone. "A Bentley? She is 18 years old?" "She has worked very hard," my father defended, "and she got accepted to UCLA. We want to reward her accomplishment." The irony was so absurd I almost laughed. Cassandra had gotten into UCLA with a 3.2 GPA and a legacy advantage because our father was an alumnus. Meanwhile, I had graduated top of my class from a prestigious prep school, gotten into Harvard on merit, and maintained a perfect 4.0 while building a company, all without their support. "I see," was all I could manage to say. "You have always been the responsible one, Harper," my mother chimed in, apparently now on speakerphone. "We never have to worry about you." Their words were meant as a compliment, but they landed like an indictment of years of conditional love. I had been punished with indifference for my competence, while Cassandra was rewarded lavishly for meeting basic expectations. After hanging up, I stood frozen on the sidewalk outside my office building. Jessica found me there 10 minutes later, still staring at my phone. "What happened?" she asked immediately, recognizing my expression. I recounted the conversation, my voice hollow. "They're buying Cassandra a Bentley for getting into college. A Bentley, Jessica. And they cannot even drive 2 hours to see me graduate from Harvard." Jessica put her arm around me. "They do not deserve to be there anyway. We are your family now. All of us at Secure Pay, Professor Wilson, me. We will be cheering louder than anyone when you walk across that stage." Later that night, Professor Wilson called to check on my graduation plans. When I told her about my parents' decision, she was uncharacteristically blunt. "Some people are incapable of celebrating others' success because it reminds them of their own limitations," she said. Do not let their absence diminish your achievement. Despite the support from my chosen family, I still felt the sting of rejection acutely. I decided I would indeed take the bus to my graduation ceremony, as my father had suggested. There was a certain poetic justice to it. I would arrive by public transportation to receive my Harvard diploma and return to my office as the CEO of a billion-dollar company, while my sister cruised around Los Angeles in her new Bentley. 2 days before graduation, I received an unexpected email from the dean of Harvard Business School requesting an urgent meeting. Concerned that there might be an issue with my degree, I went to his office immediately. "Miss Williams," Dean Harrison greeted me warmly. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." "Is everything all right with my graduation status?" I asked. He smiled. "More than all right. I just received a call from Forbes magazine. You have been named to their 30 under 30 list, but more significantly, they are featuring you in their upcoming issue as the youngest self-made female billionaire in the technology sector." I blinked, surprised that the news had broken. I had hoped to keep that information private for a bit longer. "I understand your desire for privacy," he said, "but this is an extraordinary achievement that brings great prestige to Harvard Business School. With your permission, we would like to recognize this accomplishment during the graduation ceremony." My initial instinct was to decline. I had grown accustomed to succeeding quietly, but then I thought about my parents sitting in the audience, unaware of what I had built, ready to leave immediately after the ceremony to return to celebrating Cassandra. "What exactly did you have in mind?" I asked. "Just a brief mention during your introduction as class valedictorian. Nothing that would make you uncomfortable." I considered it for a moment, then nodded. "That would be fine." As I left his office, I received a text from Cassandra's mother and father. "Surprise! Mom and Dad decided we can come to your graduation after all. See you Saturday." I stared at the message, a complex emotion rising in my chest. After all this time, they had changed their minds. But I knew it was not because they had suddenly realized the importance of my graduation. Something else had motivated this last-minute decision, though I could not imagine what. Whatever the reason, I was about to find out. Graduation day dawned clear and beautiful, the kind of perfect May morning that makes Cambridge look like a postcard. I stood in front of my mirror, carefully adjusting my cap and smoothing the robe over my dress. Despite knowing my parents would now be attending, I kept my original plan to take the bus to campus. It felt important somehow, a reminder of the journey I had made largely on my own. The public bus was nearly empty that early on a Saturday. I sat by the window, watching the familiar streets pass by, reflecting on how far I had come since arriving as a freshman 4 years earlier. My phone buzzed with messages from my team at SecurePay, wishing me congratulations, along with one from Jessica saying she had saved seats near the front for herself and Professor Wilson. When I arrived at Harvard Yard, the transformation was stunning. Rows of white chairs lined the lawn, and crimson banners hung from every available surface. Families were already gathering, taking photos and embracing their graduates. I scanned the growing crowd, wondering if my family had arrived yet. I spotted them near the registration table. My father in his customary dark suit, my mother, elegant in a pale blue dress, and Cassandra looking bored as she scrolled through her phone. They had not noticed me yet, giving me a moment to observe them. They looked exactly as they always had. Yet somehow I felt like a completely different person seeing them through new eyes. Taking a deep breath, I approached. "You made it," I said. My mother turned, her face lighting up with a practiced smile. "Harper, look at you, all ready for graduation." She leaned in for a brief hug, the scent of her expensive perfume enveloping me momentarily. My father offered a firm handshake instead of an embrace. "The traffic was better than expected. Your mother insisted we leave at dawn." Cassandra finally looked up from her phone. Congrats, sis. Can you believe they dragged me out of bed at 5 in the morning for this? I appreciate you coming, I said, meaning it despite everything. We would not miss it, my mother said, though we both knew that had been exactly their plan until very recently. I wondered again what had changed their minds. Our awkward family reunion was interrupted by an announcement asking graduates to gather for the processional. I have to go line up, I said. There are reserved seats for family in the third row. As I walked away, I heard Cassandra ask, "Do we really have to stay for the whole thing?" The ceremony began with all the pomp and tradition Harvard is known for. We marched in to pomp and circumstance, took our seats under the warm sun, and listened to the opening remarks from university officials. As valedictorian, I would be giving a short speech after receiving my diploma, something I had prepared weeks ago but revised significantly the previous night. Dean Harrison approached the podium for the conferring of degrees. The business school graduates were called first, with special recognition given to those with highest honors. When it was my turn, I rose from my seat and made my way to the stage, conscious of the hundreds of eyes following my progress. Harper Williams, Dean Harrison announced, graduating summa cum laude with highest distinction in business administration. I crossed to center stage, shook his hand, and accepted my diploma. I expected him to continue with the next name, but instead, he held onto the microphone and added, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have the extraordinary privilege of announcing that Miss Williams is not only our class valedictorian, but has recently been recognized by Forbes magazine as the youngest self-made billionaire in this year's graduating class, having founded Secure Pay, a financial technology company revolutionizing cryptocurrency transactions." A collective gasp rose from the audience, followed by enthusiastic applause. I risked a glance toward where my family was sitting. My father had literally dropped his program, the pages scattering at his feet. My mother sat frozen, her hand covering her mouth. Cassandra was staring at me with her jaw open, for once completely disengaged from her phone. The dean gestured for me to take the podium for my valedictory address. As the applause continued, I adjusted the microphone and unfolded my speech. Looking out at the sea of faces, I spotted Jessica and Professor Wilson beaming with pride in the front row. My family remained stunned in their seats. 4 years ago, I began, many of us arrived at Harvard with dreams, ambitions, and more than a little fear of the unknown. We came from different backgrounds, with different resources and support systems, but we shared a common goal: to learn, to grow, and ultimately to make our mark on the world. I continued with my prepared remarks about perseverance, innovation, and finding purpose. I spoke about the importance of self-belief and resilience when faced with obstacles. At no point did I directly reference my parents' lack of support or the struggles I had endured. This moment was about celebration, not retribution. Success is not measured by the recognition we receive or the wealth we accumulate, I said near the conclusion, but by the obstacles we overcome and the person we become in the process. Every one of us graduating today has a unique story of challenges faced and conquered. Mine involved building a company between classes and discovering that I was capable of far more than I had been led to believe. As I finished my speech to thunderous applause, I saw my classmates rising to their feet. Many of them had no idea until today about my company or its success, having known me only as the quiet, hard-working student who was rarely seen at social events because she was always working. Their faces showed not just applause, but a new respect. I returned to my seat, my heart pounding. For the remainder of the ceremony, I felt oddly detached, as if watching the proceedings from a distance. When the final graduate had received their diploma and the closing remarks concluded, we tossed our caps into the air with joyous abandon. In that moment, surrounded by falling caps and celebrating peers, I felt a sense of completion that had nothing to do with my family's presence or approval. As graduates and families began to mingle on the lawn, I was immediately surrounded by classmates offering congratulations and asking questions about secure pay. Professors I had studied under came to shake my hand, some admitting they had no idea I had been building a billion-dollar company while acing their courses. The dean of the business school introduced me to several important alumni donors. Through the crowd, I could see my family attempting to make their way toward me. My father looked determined, pushing past other families with uncharacteristic urgency. My mother followed in his wake, her expression a mix of confusion and calculation. Cassandra trailed behind them, for once looking at me with something that appeared remarkably like admiration. I excused myself from a conversation with a venture capitalist and turned to face them, unsure what to expect, but feeling strangely calm. Whatever happened next, I knew I would be okay. I had proven that to myself beyond any doubt. As my parents finally reached me through the crowd, the contrast between our last phone conversation and their current demeanor could not have been more stark. My father, who had so dismissively told me to take the bus just days earlier, now extended his arms for an embrace with a broad smile I had rarely seen directed at me. "Harper!" he exclaimed, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Why did you not tell us about your company, a $1 billion valuation? This is extraordinary." I accepted his hug stiffly, noting how different it felt from the genuine warmth of Jessica's embrace or Professor Wilson's proud handshake earlier. "It never seemed relevant to our conversations," I replied evenly. "You were always so focused on Cassandra's accomplishments." My mother stepped forward next, her social smile firmly in place. "Darling, we are so proud of you. A billionaire at 22. You must tell us everything about this company of yours." The sudden interest was jarring after years of indifference. I could almost see the calculations happening behind their eyes, the rapid recalibration of my value in their estimation. "Secure pay has been my focus for the past 2 years," I explained, keeping my tone professional. "We have developed a secure platform for cryptocurrency transactions that addresses many of the security concerns that have limited mainstream adoption." "2 years?" my father repeated. "You have been working on this while completing your degree. Why did you not ask for my help or advice? I have considerable financial experience that could have benefited you." The question struck me as so tone-deaf that I almost laughed. "I didn't think you would be interested. You made it clear early on that I was expected to handle my education independently." Several of my classmates were still hovering nearby, clearly intrigued by the family dynamics playing out before them. I spotted Jessica making her way toward us, her expression concerned. She had heard enough stories about my parents to recognize when I might need backup. "Mr. and Mrs. Williams," Jessica said as she joined us, extending her hand. "I am Jessica Rodriguez, Harper's friend and now Chief Operating Officer at SecurePay. Your daughter is the most brilliant person I have ever met. You must be thrilled to have raised such an innovator." My father shook her hand automatically, his business instincts taking over. "Of course. Very pleased. The Williams family has a tradition of excellence." Cassandra, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "Is it true what they said? You are actually a billionaire now." There was no jealousy in her question, just genuine curiosity and perhaps a hint of awe. For the first time, I wondered if Cassandra had been as trapped in our parents' dynamics as I had, cast in the role of the indulged favorite, just as I had been cast as the overlooked achiever. "On paper, yes," I answered her directly. "The company is valued at just over $1 billion, and I retain majority ownership." "That's so cool," she said simply. "I always knew you were smart, but this is next level." Her straightforward admiration felt more genuine than our parents' effusive praise. I found myself smiling at her, a real smile this time. My father cleared his throat. We should celebrate this momentous occasion. I've made reservations at La Marin for dinner. The four of us can catch up properly, and you can tell us all about your business plans. I noticed the swift change in his phrasing. What had started as my graduation celebration had instantly transformed into a business discussion once he learned of my success. The restaurant he mentioned was one of the most expensive in Cambridge, the type of place he had never offered to take me before. Actually, I said, I already have plans this evening. My team has arranged a graduation party. Surely you can reschedule with your employees, my mother suggested, her tone making it clear she considered this the obvious solution. Family comes first, after all. The irony of her statement was breathtaking. These people are not just my employees, I said. They are the ones who have supported me every step of the way. They are the ones who were there when I needed help, guidance, or just someone to believe in me. So, no, I will not be rescheduling. My father's expression hardened slightly, the familiar look of disapproval returning. Harper, I think you are being unreasonable. We have come all this way to celebrate with you. You came because Cassandra wanted to attend, I corrected him. Let's not pretend otherwise. Cassandra looked up from her phone. Actually, I was the one who convinced them to come after I saw the article about you in Business Insider last week. They had no idea. I turned to her in surprise. You saw an article about Secure Pay? She nodded. I follow tech news. When I saw your name and photo, I showed them immediately. Dad didn't believe it was really you until he looked up the company website and saw you listed as founder and CEO. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. My parents had not had a change of heart about my graduation at all. They had discovered my success and immediately recognized the potential advantage of being associated with it. The realization was both painful and oddly liberating. I appreciate you encouraging them to come, Cassandra, I said sincerely. My father, apparently unwilling to let the dinner idea go, tried again. We have a lot to discuss about your future, Harper. As your father, I can offer valuable insights about managing wealth and business growth. Perhaps we could join your celebration briefly and then have our family dinner afterward. I looked at him directly, seeing clearly for perhaps the first time the insecurity behind his controlling nature. Dad, I have been managing just fine without your insights for 4 years. My company has excellent financial advisors, a strong board, and dedicated team members. What I wanted today was simply for my family to be proud of me graduating from Harvard. Not for what I have built or how much money I have made, but just for completing this chapter of my education. My mother placed a restraining hand on my father's arm as he began to respond. Of course, we are proud of your graduation, Harper, she said smoothly. The business success is just an added bonus. Is it? I asked quietly. Because when it was just the Harvard graduation, you were planning to skip it entirely for a shopping trip to New York. An uncomfortable silence fell over our group. Several nearby families had stopped pretending not to listen. Cassandra unexpectedly broke the tension. Can I come to your party instead of going to dinner with Mom and Dad? She asked. I want to hear more about your company, and honestly, I am tired of being the center of attention all the time. It is exhausting living up to their expectations. Her candid admission surprised me. Perhaps there was more awareness in my sister than I had given her credit for. You are welcome to join us, I told her. Jessica, Professor Wilson, and the Secure Pay team would love to meet you. My father frowned. Cassandra, we had plans as a family. For perhaps the first time in her life, my sister stood her ground against our parents. I want to spend time with Harper. You two can go to dinner without us. My mother looked between us, clearly calculating the social implications of the situation. Perhaps we could all attend Harper's celebration as a family. I shook my head. I think it's better if we have some space right now. This is a lot to process for everyone. Cassandra is welcome to join my celebration if she wants to, but I am not ready to pretend everything is suddenly fine between us just because you have discovered I am successful. My father's face flushed with anger. After everything we have done for you, he began. What exactly have you done for me, Dad? I asked quietly. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. I built my company without a dollar of your money or a word of your advice. I took the bus to my graduation ceremony today, just like you suggested. He had no response to that, just tightened his jaw in the way I had seen countless times growing up. I should go, I said, spotting more of my team arriving at the edge of the lawn. My guests are waiting. Cassandra, we will be at the Charles Hotel rooftop if you want to join us later. As I turned to leave, my mother called after me. Harper, we are still your parents. We deserve to be part of your success. I paused and looked back at them. You can be part of my life going forward if you want to, but it will have to be on different terms. I am not that desperate little girl seeking your approval anymore. I know my own worth now. With those words, I walked away to join the people who had truly supported me, leaving my parents standing among the dispersing crowd, for once watching me walk away instead of the other way around. 1 year after graduation, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Manhattan penthouse, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in hues of gold and pink. The view still took my breath away, a daily reminder of how far I had come. In the reflection of the glass, I could see the framed cover of Forbes magazine on my wall featuring my photo with the headline, "The Billion-Dollar Underdog: How Harper Williams Revolutionized Cryptocurrency While Still in College." Secure Pay had grown beyond my wildest expectations. Our user base had expanded to over 5 million. Our technology had been licensed by 3 major international banks, and our company valuation had surpassed $5 billion. We had offices in New York, San Francisco, and London, with a team of over 200 talented individuals who shared my vision. But the true transformation over the past year had been internal. The wounded, approval-seeking young woman who had taken the bus to her graduation ceremony had evolved into someone who recognized her own value independent of others' validation. The healing process had not been easy or linear. There were still nights when memories of childhood slights and parental indifference would surface, bringing with them echoes of pain and rejection. I had found a therapist in New York, Dr. Lawson, who specialized in family trauma and helped me understand that my parents' behavior had never been about my worth. Some parents, she explained during one of our sessions, are simply incapable of seeing their children as separate individuals with needs distinct from their own narrative. That is their limitation, not yours. Those words had been transformative, helping me to reframe 2 decades of experiences through a new lens. I was learning to acknowledge the pain without letting it define me or my future relationships. Perhaps the most unexpected development had been my relationship with Cassandra. After attending my graduation celebration, where she had witnessed firsthand the respect and genuine affection my team had for me, something had shifted in her perspective. 2 weeks later, she had called me asking if we could meet for coffee the next time I was in Los Angeles. That coffee had turned into a 4-hour conversation where, for the first time, we spoke honestly about our shared childhood and the roles we had been assigned. Cassandra confessed that she had always admired me, but had also felt intimidated by what she perceived as my effortless perfection. I never wanted the Bentley, she admitted. I just wanted them to look at me the way they looked at you when you brought home perfect report cards. It seemed like nothing I did was ever enough to make them really see me. It was a revelation to discover that my sister, whom I had always seen as the favored child, had been fighting her own battles for parental approval. The pedestal they had placed her on had been just as isolating as the cold expectations they had set for me. When Cassandra expressed uncertainty about attending UCLA, confessing she had only applied there because our father insisted, I encouraged her to take a gap year to figure out what she truly wanted. 2 months later, she made the difficult decision to defer her enrollment and instead volunteered with a marine conservation program in Hawaii. To our parents' horror, she also refused the Bentley and any further financial support. I want to try doing things the Harper way, she had told them, on my own terms. Now, Cassandra lived in the guest suite of my penthouse, working for the charitable foundation I had established to provide technology, education, and scholarships to underprivileged students. She had discovered a passion for environmental causes and was helping direct a portion of our foundation's resources toward sustainable technology initiatives. Our relationship had blossomed into a true friendship based on mutual respect rather than the competitive dynamic our parents had fostered. We were healing together, learning to be sisters in a way we had never been allowed to be as children. My relationship with my parents remained more complicated. After the graduation revelation, they had made numerous attempts to insert themselves into my success. My father had suggested joining the board of Secure Pay to provide seasoned guidance. My mother had tried to arrange photo shoots for family-friendly business magazines, positioning themselves as the supportive force behind my achievements. I had established clear boundaries, allowing them limited access to my life, while refusing to pretend our past had been different than it was. We spoke occasionally by phone, and I visited Connecticut for major holidays, but the visits were brief and carefully structured. Dr. Lawson had helped me understand that forgiveness did not mean pretending the hurt had never happened, but rather choosing not to let it control my future. You do not owe them the success story they are trying to claim, she told me. Your narrative belongs to you alone. The Secure Pay Foundation had become one of my greatest sources of pride. Using 10% of our profits, we funded scholarships for students who, like me, were determined to succeed despite limited family support. The foundation covered not just tuition, but living expenses, books, and technology, ensuring that recipients could focus on their education without the exhausting juggle of multiple jobs. Jessica, now my official business partner and closest friend, oversaw the foundation while continuing her role as COO of Secure Pay. Professor Wilson had joined our board of advisors after retiring from Harvard, providing the same thoughtful guidance to our company that she had once given to me as a student. These women, along with my team and my sister, had become the family I had created for myself. We celebrated holidays together, supported each other through challenges, and shared in each other's joys and successes. It was a different kind of family than the one I had been born into, but it was one built on genuine care and mutual respect. The most powerful lesson I had learned through my journey was that true strength comes not from the approval of others, but from the deep knowledge of your own capabilities. Every time my parents had overlooked me, every time they had chosen Cassandra, every time they had told me to handle things on my own, they had inadvertently helped forge the resilience that ultimately led to my success. The people who are meant to lift you up will do so without being asked, I had written in a recent blog post for young entrepreneurs. And sometimes, the people who should support you the most are the ones who teach you to stand firmly on your own. Life had come full circle in ways I could never have imagined that day on the bus to graduation. The journey had been painful at times, but I would not change it. Every struggle had shaped me, every disappointment had redirected me, and every moment I spent believing in myself when no one else did had strengthened my resolve. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the city skyline, I turned away from the window to find Cassandra entering the living room. The foundation committee approved all 5 of the new scholarship recipients, she announced with a smile, including that girl from Arizona who reminds me so much of you, the one who has been working 3 jobs to save for college. I smiled. Make sure she knows she does not have to take the bus to her graduation. We will send a car, Cassandra laughed. Or better yet, a Bentley. Our shared laughter was the sound of healing, of reclaiming our narrative, of transforming pain into purpose. The journey was not over, but I was no longer walking it alone or seeking validation from those unable to give it. I had found my own path, built my own success, and created a family that celebrated rather than diminished my light, and that, more than any business achievement or financial milestone, was the true measure of how far I had come. Have you ever felt overlooked by the people who should have been your biggest supporters? Or have you found your own chosen family who truly appreciates you for who you are? Share your experience in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by others' recognition. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes the greatest success comes from believing in yourself when no one else does.